The stranger in Dust Creek was a dying town in the middle of nowhere. The wooden signs were faded, the saloon barely stood on its legs, and tumbleweeds rolled like forgotten memories. Folks walked with their heads low and their words even lower. They had learned the hard way that speaking too much could bring trouble, and in Dust Creek, trouble rode fast on horseback and smelled like smoke and blood. Then one morning, as the sun poured orange light over the cracked earth, a stranger walked into town. He wasn't loud, didn't ride a big horse, and didn't carry a fancy hat. His boots were worn, his coat long and dark like a shadow, and his face was quiet. Like a man who had seen too much but never spoke of it. That man was Keanu Reeves. No one knew who he was. No one even asked. He didn't look like the law. He didn't look like a criminal. He just looked tired. Like someone who had been running from something, or maybe chasing it for far too long. He walked into the saloon, took a seat at the bar, and simply said, "Water." The barkeep, a nervous man with a crooked beard, nodded fast and poured him a glass. The few folks inside whispered. Strangers didn't just come to Dust Creek, especially not alone. Especially not with eyes like his. Keanu looked around. He noticed everything. The holes in the floor, the broken piano, the trembling hand of the bartender, but he didn't say a word. He just drank his water and waited. And then the doors burst open. 3 men walked in. Loud boots, louder laughs. Their faces were dirty and their belts heavy with pistols. They called themselves the Hollister brothers, but everyone else just called them what they were: outlaws. The biggest one, Jake Hollister, spotted Keanu and grinned. Well, look what the wind dragged in, a lost puppy. His brother Tim leaned against a post. You lost, stranger? This town ain't for daydreamers. Keanu didn't move. He didn't blink. He just stared into his glass. Jake walked over and knocked the glass from Keanu's hand. It shattered on the floor. Silence filled the room like smoke. I said, "You lost?" Jake repeated, voice colder now. Keanu stood up, slowly, calmly. He looked at Jake. Then he looked at the shattered glass. Was that necessary? He asked, his voice low but clear. Tim chuckled. Look at him try to talk tough. But then Jake froze. Something in Keanu's eyes made his chest tighten. It wasn't fear. It was something deeper. Like standing on a cliff and realizing the ground below isn't safe. Keanu didn't draw a gun. Didn't make a move. He just stepped around the glass, nodded to the bartender, and walked out the door. The room stayed quiet long after he was gone. Outside, he looked up at the sky. It was cloudless, too quiet. Like the calm before a storm. And deep inside, Keanu knew. They would come for him, and he would be ready. But he didn't come to fight. Not this time. He had come to find someone. A girl named Leela. Years ago, he had made a promise to her dying father. He had said, I'll protect her, no matter what. But life had a cruel way of pulling people apart. And by the time he found her name on a letter pinned to a sheriff's board, she had already gone missing. The only clue was a scribbled line, last seen near Dust Creek. He stayed that night in a small cabin by the edge of town. It was old, forgotten, covered in spiderwebs and silence. He didn't sleep much. Just sat by the window, listening. He heard the owls. He heard the coyotes. But he also heard footsteps outside around midnight. He didn't panic. He just waited. A knock came. He opened the door and saw a young boy, barefoot, dirty face, eyes wide, with fear. Are you the one who came today? The boy whispered. Keanu nodded. They're planning something. The Hollister brothers. They said they don't like strangers snooping around. Keanu looked at the boy and asked, What's your name? Eli. Thank you, Eli. That was brave of you. The boy hesitated, then handed him a folded piece of paper. They dropped this in the alley. I don't know if it means anything. Keanu took it, unfolded it, and read the words that changed everything. We sell them to Bishop Ridge. One girl left. She's special. Worth gold. His breath stopped. This wasn't just a gang. This was a chain, a dirty one, and Leela might still be alive. But not for long. By morning, Keanu Reeves was no longer the quiet stranger. He became something else. A storm in the shape of a man. He went to the sheriff, but the office was locked and empty. The badge hung on the wall like it had given up long ago. So Keanu did what he had to do. He started asking questions. He spoke to the blacksmith, who looked away in fear. He spoke to a mother outside the general store who said, "Please, don't get involved. They'll kill you." But he just nodded and kept going, because he wasn't looking for permission. He was looking for justice. By the end of the day, the Hollister brothers knew his name, and they were laughing. Keanu Reeves? Jake Hollister said, kicking his boots up on a table. "Sounds like a church boy." Tim loaded bullets into a revolver. "We'll send him out in a coffin." But there was one man who didn't laugh. An old one-eyed gambler named Silas, sitting in the corner of the saloon. He muttered, "You boys don't know what you're poking." Jake spat on the floor. "And what would you know?" Silas looked up, his voice trembling like a ghost. "He's the fastest gun I ever saw. I saw him once, years ago, in a town called Red Mesa. 3 men drew on him. None of them got the chance to fire. They say he gave it up, swore never to kill again." Jake shrugged. "Then he'll die easy." Silas looked him straight in the eye. "He gave it up, but he never forgot how." As the sun dipped low and shadows stretched long across Dust Creek, Keanu walked through town once more. He went to the church and sat in silence, staring at the stained glass, breathing slowly, remembering Lila's laugh, her father's last words, and the weight of the promise he still carried. Then he took his gun out of its case, polished it, loaded it, and waited, because they were coming, and when they came, they wouldn't know what hit them. The Devil Rides at Dawnth night in Dust Creek was darker than usual. Clouds smothered the moonlight, and the wind carried an eerie howl across the empty streets. Somewhere in the distance, a horse neighed. Doors were locked. Lamps were out. No one wanted to be awake when the Hollister brothers decided to ride. But inside the old cabin at the edge of town, Keanu Reeves stood silent and still. His gun lay beside him on the wooden table. 6 bullets. 6 chances. He wasn't afraid. But he wasn't rushing either. He knew something the Hollisters didn't. Timing was everything. And justice had its own pace. Eli, the barefoot boy who had warned him, sat curled in the corner of the room with a blanket around his shoulders. His big eyes watched Keanu carefully. "Are they coming tonight?" Eli asked softly. Keanu nodded. "They'll want to send the message. But they don't know who they're dealing with." Eli hesitated. "You're not like other men." Keanu gave him a small smile. "That's what my mother used to say." Outside, the hoofbeats started. Slow at first, then louder, closer, rough. Voices followed, laughing, shouting, echoing through the dirt streets like thunder. Keanu stood up and picked up the paper Eli had given him the night before. His eyes locked onto the words again. Bishop Ridge. One girl left. She's special. Worth gold. It burned into his mind. He stepped out of the cabin and walked down the main road, boots crunching on gravel. Dust lifted with each step. The wind picked up. The saloon doors swung wildly. This town had seen storms before, but tonight, something felt different. The Hollister brothers were waiting in front of the sheriff's office. Jake was spinning a revolver in his hand. Tim leaned against a post with a cigar between his teeth. The youngest, Ray Hollister, looked around like he couldn't wait to shoot something. "Well, look who decided to die with his boots on." Jake hollered when he saw Keanu. Keanu didn't answer. He just walked toward them, calm, measured, fearless. "Got a death wish?" Tim called out. Flicking the cigar onto the ground. Keanu stopped about 20 feet away. He raised one hand. "I'm not here to start a war," Jake scoffed. "Then why are you in our town?" "I'm looking for someone." "A girl. Her name's Lila." At that, Ray laughed. "You mean the gold mine?" Keanu's eyes narrowed. "Where is she?" "Why should we tell you?" Jake grinned. "What's one girl to a dead man?" Silence. Then Keanu said just 5 words. "You should walk away now." The words were soft, but they cracked through the air like lightning. The brothers stared. Tim reached for his gun, but Keanu was faster. In one clean motion, he drew his revolver and shot the gun clean out of Tim's hand before it even left the holster. The sound echoed through the valley like a drumbeat of truth. Tim screamed, falling to the ground, clutching his bleeding hand. Ray reached for his rifle, but Keanu shot again, this time grazing his shoulder just enough to knock him flat. Only Jake stood, his face twisted from confidence to pure rage. "You think you're something special?" he yelled. Keanu walked closer. "I'm just a man keeping a promise." Jake's hands shook. "Go ahead," Keanu said, his voice steady. "Draw." But Jake couldn't. Not because he was afraid of dying, but because, in that moment, he saw something in Keanu that rattled his soul. It wasn't anger. It was sorrow, and that made him more dangerous than any outlaw Jake had ever faced. Keanu lowered his gun. "Tell me where they took her." Jake's mouth trembled. They moved her last week. Bishop Ridge. Old Silver Camp. 3 days south." "How many men?" Keanu asked. 8. "Maybe 10. They're worse than us." Keanu nodded. "You won't see me again." He turned and walked away. No one stopped him. Not even the sheriff, who finally peeked out from the shadows but said nothing. Keanu returned to his cabin. Eli was waiting by the window, eyes wide. "What happened?" the boy asked. Keanu knelt down and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You were right. They were planning something." "What now?" "Now I ride." Keanu packed his bag. Just the essentials: bullets, water, a map, and a photograph of Lila when she was a child. He mounted a horse from the stable behind the church. An old gray mare with tired eyes but strong legs. Before leaving, he left a note under the barkeep's door. "Don't let the boy go hungry." And then, without another word, he rode into the desert. 3 days passed. Each night was colder than the last, each morning hotter than before. The desert was cruel, but Keanu never stopped. He followed dry creek beds, crossed silent hills, and passed through ghost towns swallowed by time. He saw signs of trouble: burned wagons, bullet holes in fences, and a crow pecking at a bloody bandana. But he didn't turn back. On the 3rd night, he reached Bishop Ridge. The old silver mining camp looked abandoned from the outside. Broken carts, rusted tools, and old lanterns littered the place. But Keanu knew better. He crouched behind a rock, watching. A single light flickered inside one of the buildings. Men walked in and out, all armed, all dangerous. He counted 9. Then he saw her, through a cracked window, sitting in the corner of a wooden shack. Lila. Her hair was longer, her face thinner. But it was her. She looked tired, broken, but alive. Keanu single quotes as heart ached. He had found her. But now came the hardest part: getting her out. He waited until midnight. The guards outside were drunk, loud, careless. He crept through the shadows, using the wind to cover his steps. He made it to the back of the shack, picked the lock with a knife, and slipped inside. Lila looked up in shock. "Who?" she started, but he put a finger to his lips. "It's me," he whispered. "I'm here to take you home." Her eyes filled with tears. You came, I promised." She nodded, too choked up to speak. But just as they were about to leave, a loud voice shouted from outside, "Someone's out there!" Gunshots cracked through the air. Keanu grabbed Lila's hand. "Run!" They burst out the door and into the night, bullets flying around them. Keanu fired back, hitting one guard in the leg, another in the shoulder. They ran through the mine shafts, ducking behind barrels and crates. Keanu was fast, precise, protecting Lila with every move. But then a voice roared, "You ain't leaving, stranger." The leader of the group, a cruel man with a scar down his neck, stepped into the path. Blocking their escape, he raised his shotgun. Keanu pushed Lila behind him. "You sure you want to die for a girl?" The man sneered. Keanu didn't blink. "You're already dead. You just don't know it yet." And with that, the two fastest hands in the desert moved. But only one man fired, and it wasn't the outlaw. Keanu single quotes S. Bullet hit the man square in the chest. He dropped like a stone. Silence returned. Keanu turned to Lila. "We have to go, now." They ran for the horses, climbed on, and vanished into the desert before the rest of the gang knew what hit them. They rode all night. By dawn, they reached a small cave and took shelter. Lila collapsed, breathless. I thought no one would come." Keanu sat beside her. "You matter. Don't ever forget that." She looked at him, her voice soft. "Why did you come for me?" He stared into the fire. "Because some promises mean more than life." And in that quiet cave, under a rising sun, the girl who had once been forgotten finally felt seen. Ashes and Aneth cave was cold, but Lila finally slept. Curled in a wool blanket, her face softened as the fear began to fade from her bones. Keanu didn't sleep. He sat near the entrance, watching the desert. Every shadow, every flicker of movement. He'd been hunted before. He knew what came next. Men didn't forget when you took something from them. Especially not when that something was worth gold. He looked at the sky. Soft pinks and golds broke across the horizon, like silent fire. The sun was rising, and with it came a new day of danger. He turned and looked at Lila. She was still just a girl, but her eyes told the story of someone who had lived through a storm. Her voice had trembled the night before, but her will had been unbroken. She had survived. But survival wasn't enough. They had to disappear. And fast. When Lila woke, she rubbed her eyes and whispered, "Was it all a dream?" Keanu smiled gently. "No, you're free." Her lips trembled, and for a second she was speechless. But then her voice grew firm. "They'll come after us." "They will," Keanu said. "But they won't find us." They packed quickly. The gray mare was tired, but she had one ride left in her. Lila climbed behind Keanu, wrapping her arms tightly around him. He whispered over his shoulder, "Hold on." They rode east, away from Bishop Ridge, toward the rocky trails that led through Blacktooth Canyon. It was dangerous, steep, and wild, but it was the only way to shake off the men who would surely come. And they did come. Just as they left the canyon behind them, a scout spotted them. He galloped back to camp and shouted, "They're headed through the dry pass." The Bishop Ridge gang mounted their horses and followed. All 7 of them now, blood in their eyes, pride in their hearts, and rage boiling in their chests. They didn't care who she was. They only knew she was valuable. But Keanu knew something. They didn't. This wasn't just a rescue. This was justice. And justice sometimes came in the form of a gun. After 2 days of riding and hiding, Keanu and Lila reached a small village named Red Hollow. It was nothing more than a few homes, a chapel, and a well. But it was peaceful. It was safe for now. An older woman named Agnes took them in. Her husband had passed, and she lived alone with her grandson, Caleb. Agnes brought them soup and warm bread. "You're welcome here," she said. "But the desert listens to footsteps. You stay too long, and it starts whispering your name." Keanu nodded. "We'll leave soon." Lila played outside with Caleb while Keanu sat at the well, cleaning his revolver. The metal gleamed in the afternoon sun. It had taken lives, saved lives. And soon, it would be called upon again. Agnes sat beside him. "You got danger following you?" "Yes," Keanu replied simply. "You protect her?" "With everything I have," Agnes nodded. Then maybe God sent you, he didn't answer. He wasn't sure God even remembered him. That night, after the children were asleep, Keanu stepped outside. The sky was clear. Stars like diamonds, but the peace didn't last. From the hills, movement, a flicker of torchlight, too many shadows, too many horses. They had been followed. Keanu went to Agnes's door. Knocked softly. She opened, worried. What is it? You need to hide the children. They're here. Her face paled. You sure? Yes. Agnes nodded and rushed to gather Lila and Caleb. She led them into the cellar and shut the door tight. Keanu stood alone in the village square. He had 6 bullets. 7 men. But it wouldn't be the first time. Odds didn't matter. He stood still, hands resting at his sides. Then they came. Dust kicked up around them as they rode into Red Hollow, guns raised, faces angry. The leader, a tall man with gray in his beard and fire in his eyes, called out, "You took what belonged to us." Keanu didn't flinch. She doesn't belong to anyone. We gave you a warning. And I gave you a chance, Keanu said. The leader dismounted. His boots crunched in the dirt. What's your name, cowboy? KeanuReeves. The men shifted. Some of them knew the name. You the one from Red Mesa? Keanu didn't answer. He didn't need to. The man's mouth curled. Then this will be a fair fight. You think that, Keanu said, until it starts. Then the silence snapped like lightning. Guns were drawn. But Keanu was faster. 3 shots. 3 men fell. He spun, dropped to one knee, and fired twice more. 2 more fell. Bullets whizzed past his ear, carving dust into the air. One grazed his coat. Another chipped the stone behind him. He rolled behind a cart, reloaded, breathing slow and steady. The last 2 men hesitated. You can walk away, Keanu called. You're alone. One of them shouted. Keanu stood, eyes like stone. I've been alone my whole life. He fired again. One more dropped. The final man froze. Threw down his gun, ran. Keanu didn't chase him. He just walked back to the well. Sat down and waited. Agnes opened the cellar door. Layla ran out and hugged him. You're bleeding, she cried. Just a scratch, he said. But it wasn't single quotes. He was hit in the shoulder. It wasn't fatal, but it hurt. Agnes cleaned the wound, wrapping it with old cloth. Keanu winced, but said nothing. You should rest, Lila whispered. He shook his head. We can't stay. But why? She asked. They're gone. Others will come, always do. She looked at him, tears in her eyes. Why do you keep risking your life for me? He didn't answer right away. Then finally he said, Because you remind me of someone I couldn't save. Her voice cracked. Was it your daughter? He nodded slowly. Her name was Lily. Lila held his hand. I'm sorry. Keanu looked away, his voice rough. I won't lose another. That night, Lila stayed by his side. Not as someone needing protection, but as someone who understood loss. In silence, they both healed slowly, painfully, but with hope. The next morning, Keanu stood at the edge of the village. Horse ready. We leave now, he said. Agnes hugged. Lila, you be strong, girl. Keanu tipped his hat to the old woman. Thank you. They rode east, toward a place called Haven Falls, a sanctuary far from lawless lands. But they didn't know. Someone was already waiting for them, and he wasn't after money. He was after revenge. The bounty and the ghost sun over the desert was unforgiving. It carved heat into the earth and pulled sweat from every pore. KeanuReeves rode silently, Lila behind him on the saddle, her arms loosely wrapped around his waist. They had left Red Hollow before sunrise, carrying with them only what they needed: water, a few bullets, and the heavy silence of all they had been through. They were headed toward Haven Falls, a distant town near the mountains. Some said it was safe. Some said it was a myth. Keanu believed in neither, but it was the only direction left. Lila leaned forward. How far is Haven Falls? 2 more days, Keanu replied. Do you think we'll be safe there? He didn't answer, because safety wasn't real. Not for him, anymore. What they didn't know was that a man named Dallas Kern had heard about what happened in Red Hollow. He wasn't just any bounty hunter, he was the best. Or the worst, depending on who was paying him. His face was weathered like sun-baked leather. His eyes were cold. His hands never shook. He had one rule: never let a target go. He sat in a saloon, miles away, flipping a silver coin between his fingers when a rider burst through the doors, panting. It's him, the rider gasped. The one from Red Mesa. The one who took down Bishop Ridge and the Hollisters. He's alive. Kern raised an eyebrow. Keanu Reeves? The rider nodded. He's headed to Haven Falls. Kern stood slowly. Double bounty, dead or alive, I'll take it. He didn't smile. He just packed his rifle. Meanwhile, Keanu and Lila reached an abandoned chapel halfway to Haven Falls. The bell tower was broken. The pews inside were covered in dust and silence. They tied the horse near a cactus and stepped inside to rest. Keanu checked every corner. Old habits. Lila sat in the front row, staring at the empty altar. Did you used to believe in God? She asked. Keanu paused. I did, a long time ago. What happened? He stopped answering. She nodded. Me too. The two of them sat there, not talking, not praying, just breathing. Then Lila spoke again, her voice quiet. I had dreams in that place, before they took me. What kind of dreams? To paint, to see oceans, to fall in love. Keanu looked at her, really looked. You still can I? She asked. Yes, he said firmly, because you're free now. She turned to him. What about your dreams? Keanu stared at the broken cross on the wall. I had one. It died with Lily. A long pause. Then she reached out and held his hand. Maybe you can start over too. But before he could reply, a sound echoed outside. A slow, rhythmic creak. Keanu stood instantly. Eyes sharp. He stepped out of the chapel and saw a rider in the distance. Tall, silent, steady. Dallas Kern. He dismounted and walked forward like death in a coat. Keanu called out, You following me? Kern stopped. You've got a price on your head. From who? Doesn't matter. Enough to retire 10 times over. Keanu drew his coat back, revealing his gun. Kern smirked. You really think you're still that fast? Keanu didn't blink. You want to find out? Kern shook his head. I didn't come to fight. Not yet. I want the girl. Keanu stepped in front of the chapel door. She's not yours. Kern's face turned to stone. Then I'll take you both. Keanu didn't wait. His gun moved like lightning, but Kern was ready. Both men fired at the same time. Dust exploded in the air. Wood splintered behind them. Keanu rolled behind a broken cart. Heart pounding. Kern ducked behind a barrel, reloading fast. Lila stayed inside, trembling, listening to every shot like it was the last one she'd hear. Keanu breathed deeply. Calm, centered. He remembered Red Mesa. Remembered how it felt when time slowed and instincts took over. He slid out from the cart, fired once, hit Kern's boot. Another shot chipped the ground near Kern's chest. Kern cursed, fired back. The bullet grazed Keanu's arm. Hot and sharp. Then silence. Click. Kern was out. Keanu stood slowly, walked forward, bleeding but steady. You lost, he said. Kern stared at him, stunned. Finish it, Kern growled. Keanu aimed his gun, then lowered it. No. Kern's eyes widened. Why? Because I'm not that man anymore. He kicked Kern's gun away. Tell them I'm dead. Tell them the girl died too. Or next time, I won't miss. Kern looked into Keanu's eyes and saw something that made his blood run cold. Mercy. But not weakness. Mercy, like a man who had seen too much, done too much, and chose not to spill blood unless there was no other way. Kern nodded slowly. Keanu turned and walked back into the chapel. Lila ran to him. "Are you okay?" "Just a scratch," he lied. She helped bandage his arm. "Why didn't you kill him?" She asked. "Because we deserve peace, not more graves." They rested for an hour before riding again. Kern stayed behind. He watched the dust trail vanish into the horizon, then whispered to himself, "Maybe he is the fastest gun, but it's his heart that's faster." They reached Haven Falls by nightfall. To their surprise, it was real. A small town lit by lanterns and kindness. There were children playing, dogs barking, people smiling. No one reached for a gun. Keanu and Lila dismounted and looked around. A man stepped out of a small inn and greeted them. "Welcome. You look like you've traveled far." "We have," Keanu said. The man smiled. "You'll find rest here." No questions asked. They entered the inn. Soft beds, warm meals, peace. For the first time in weeks, Lila laughed. And Keanu smiled. Just a little. Outside, a paper fluttered in the wind. A bounty notice. A name scratched out. In its place, someone had written, "Keanu Reeves, gone with the wind." And just like that, the fastest gun in the West vanished once again. But peace doesn't last forever. And somewhere in the desert, a ghost from Keanu's past was waking up. The return of Shadow Creek. Haven Falls was a place built on second chances. Its wooden houses stood strong, its water ran clean, and no one asked about the scars others carried. The people believed in starting over until the wind shifted. Keanu Reeves had been in Haven Falls for a week. He chopped wood in the morning, helped fix fences in the afternoon, and taught Lila how to ride a horse in the evening. She laughed again, truly laughed. Her eyes began to glow with life instead of fear. Keanu even found a dog that wouldn't leave his side, a quiet mutt with one ear and too much loyalty. But while Haven Falls gave him a taste of peace, it didn't erase the storm growing far beyond the mountains, because someone had found the scar-faced leader of Bishop Ridge. His name was Thorn Vic, and he wasn't dead. When Keanu rescued Lila from the Silver Camp, he thought Thorn had taken a bullet to the chest. He hadn't. He had survived, barely. And now he wanted revenge. Thorn's body was weak, but his hatred burned hotter than ever. As he sat by a fire, clutching a torn bounty poster with Keanu's name scratched out, he whispered to his men, "Bring him to me, alive." Meanwhile, Keanu sat with Lila at the edge of a cliff overlooking Haven Falls. The sunset painted the sky in orange and fire. "You ever think you'd end up here?" Lila asked. Keanu shook his head. "No, but I'm glad I did." She smiled. "I want to stay," he nodded. "We will." And he believed it. For a moment, until they returned to town. And found silence. The inn was empty. The store was locked. Horses were gone. Keanu walked down the main road, eyes sharp, every step heavy. Then he saw it. A note nailed to the chapel door. "We have her." His heart sank. But when he read further, his blood froze. "Bring the gun, or she dies." He turned and realized Lila was no longer behind him. "No," he whispered. They had taken her. Again. Thorn Vic's men had stormed the town during the day when Keanu and Lila were gone. They left no bullet holes, no fire, no screams, just one message: "We're back." They dragged Lila to an abandoned fort deep in the cliffs of Shadow Creek. The walls were rotting, the gates chained shut. But it was a fortress all the same. Thorn sat in a rusted chair, his chest wrapped in bandages, his eyes burning with rage. "You're special," he told Lila. "He came for you once. He'll come again." Lila glared at him. "He'll come, but not for you, for me," Thorn smirked. "Then let's give him a welcome." Keanu stood outside the chapel, staring at the note. He had read it 10 times. He'd spent years running from violence. But now, there was no running left. He went to his cabin, opened a wooden chest beneath the floorboards. Inside were weapons he had buried long ago. A long black coat, a belt of bullets, a silver Revolver with the name Lily etched into the grip. He strapped everything on. Not like a hero, like a man with one thing left to protect. Agnes, the old woman from Red Hollow, had arrived that morning with her grandson to trade. She saw Keanu as he saddled his horse. "You're leaving?" she asked. He nodded. "You'll be outnumbered." "I know." Agnes stepped forward and handed him something, a small wooden cross. "Give this to her when you bring her back." Keanu took it, tucked it into his coat, and rode out. The path to Shadow Creek was long, steep, and cruel. Jagged rocks, no shade. Silence except for the beat of hooves and the wind whispering secrets. Keanu rode alone. But inside, he carried every moment, every scream, every fire, every life lost that could have been saved. He wasn't a killer anymore, but he remembered how at the fort, Thorn prepared his men. "We don't shoot him," Thorn growled. "Not until I say. I want him to see what happens when he plays hero." Lila sat in chains, blood on her lip but fire in her eyes. "He's not a hero," she said. Thorn leaned closer. "What is he then?" "He's the reckoning." Thorn laughed. "We'll see." When Keanu reached the cliff above Shadow Creek, he saw them. 10 men, all armed. The fort surrounded. He didn't blink. He just dismounted, took out a spyglass, and studied their movements. They were sloppy. Cocky. And that would cost them. He waited until dusk. Then moved like smoke. He came down the rocks silently, slipping past 2 guards, tied them up, gagged them, stole a rifle, then crept along the edge of the fort wall. Inside, Leela saw the shadows shift. Her heart pounded. "He's here," she whispered. Thorn single quotes SI twitched. "What?" "He's here." And she was right. Keanu lit 2 oil barrels near the gate and rolled them down the hill. They exploded with flame and smoke. Gangs scattered. Confused. Shouting. And that's when Keanu moved. His rifle fired once, took down the man near the main door. He ducked behind crates. Fired again, shot another guard through the leg. Panic set in. "He's here." One of them yelled. "He's everywhere." Thorn shouted, "Find him! Bring me his head!" But they couldn't find him, because he was in the shadows, and in the chaos. And then he was behind Thorn, gun aimed. Face calm. Voice cold. "Let her go." Thorn turned. Smiled. Double quotes. "You think I'm scared of you?" Keanu took 1 step closer. "You should be." Thorn drew his blade, but before he could lunge, Keanu fired. The bullet tore through Thorn's shoulder. He dropped. Screamed. But lived. Keanu ran to Lila, broke her chains. She hugged him tight. "I knew you'd come," she whispered. "I always will," he said. But the fight wasn't over. 3 more men charged in. Keanu pushed Leela behind him and fired. 1. 2. The last one tackled him. They fell hard. Fists flew. Blood spilled. Keanu slammed the man's head into the ground, grabbed his gun, and stood over him. He didn't shoot. He walked away. "Tell the others," he said. "Don't come after us again." The man nodded. Terrified. Keanu turned to Thorn. Bleeding, weak, seething. Keanu dropped a bullet at his feet. "This was meant for you," he said. "I decided to keep it." And then they left. Riding through the smoke, through the fire, through the darkness. Toward Haven Falls. Toward hope. And peace. But not before Lila asked, "Why didn't you kill him?" Keanu looked at her. Then at the horizon. And said softly, "Because I choose life." The legend rides away. The desert wind was calm. Again, not a single trace remained of the fire, smoke, or gunshots that had once thundered through the cliffs of Shadow Creek. It was as if nature itself wanted to bury the past, to cover the pain in sand and silence. KeanuReeves and Lila rode slowly back toward Haven Falls. The stars above were quiet, endless. Keanu looked down at Layla. She had fallen asleep against his back, her arms loosely wrapped around his waist, trusting him with everything she had. And he had never felt more human, more alive. But he also knew something else. Deep in his bones, this was the last time they would ride together. Not because he wanted to leave her, but because danger followed him like a shadow he could never outrun. They reached Haven Falls at dawn. Agnes was waiting outside the inn, her eyes filled with tears as she saw Lila safe. "Thank God," she whispered, holding Lila tight. "We prayed for you," Lila smiled softly. "He came for me, again." Agnes looked at Keanu. His coat was torn, his shirt stained with blood, his eyes older than his face. "You need rest," she said. Keanu nodded. "Just a day." He stayed at the edge of town in a quiet room with one window. From it, he could see the hills and horses and hear the children laughing. It was peaceful. Lila visited him that evening with 2 cups of warm tea. They sat by the window. She said nothing for a while. Then finally she whispered, "Why do you always leave?" He looked down at the tea, then at her. "Because if I stay, they'll come. We could fight them, together," he smiled gently. "You deserve more than just fighting." Lila reached into her pocket and took out the wooden cross Agnes had given him. She placed it in his palm. "That's from her," she said. "But it's also from me." He closed his fingers around it. "I'm not your burden," she added. "I'm your family." Those words hit deeper than any bullet. He didn't respond. His eyes said everything. That night, he walked through the quiet town alone. He stopped at the well. At the chapel. At the spot where the children drew chalk horses on the dusty road. And then he stood at the edge of town, watching the moonlight bathe the open road. Agnes approached him, a lantern in her hand. "You're going, aren't you?" she asked. He nodded. "She'd be heartbroken." "She'd be safe," he replied. Agnes looked at him with deep, motherly eyes. "And what about you?" He stared at the horizon. Then said, "I don't know what I am without a war." She gently touched his arm. "Maybe it's time to learn." In the morning, Lila awoke and found a note beside her bed. It was written in simple words. "You're the strongest person I've ever known. Don't wait for me. Live for both of us." Keanu ran outside barefoot, eyes scanning every road, every trail. But he was gone. No one saw him leave. No one heard the horse. But somewhere far beyond the hills, a rider in a black coat rode alone, chasing neither revenge nor redemption, but peace. And he wasn't fast because he wanted to be feared. He was fast because he had to be. Because the world doesn't give second chances to those who move slow. Years passed. Lila stayed in Haven Falls. She built a small schoolhouse near the chapel. She painted again. She laughed more. People came from other towns to see the girl who had survived. Bishop Ridge. And every time someone asked about the man who saved her, she would pause and say, "He's still out there." And they would ask, "What was his name?" And she would smile. His name was Keanu. In a quiet saloon on the edge of a dying town, years later, a boy sat beside an old man with one ear, the dog that never left Keanu's side. The boy asked, "Is it true about the fastest gun in the West?" The old man smiled. "Not just fast kind. Where is he now?" The man looked out the window. "Some say he's a ghost. Others say he's a legend." Then he leaned closer. "But I say, he's just a man who kept a promise." And outside, as the sun dipped behind the hills, a lone rider moved across the horizon, not to fight, not to kill, but simply to ride. Free. Finally.